can't stay from it. Wonder what the people gonna take away from it. If I keep it 800, I've been doing everything I want instead of this shit that they wanted. Can't get blooded cause it ain't no fun. Said I got a lot of pressure, but the boy weigh a ton. And some don't know where I'm from. I'm done, fell shun. Fuck them all.
Hello. Oh, which chair am I going to use? I didn't think about that. Don't ask why I have two chairs. It does not matter. I'm getting a bit old for this. Right. Oh, you can probably hear me now. I don't know if you could before. Guess we'll see how many takes we do of this. Right. So, as promised, I'm doing my audiobook. At the moment, I've sort of just left the camera on because I feel like it's more interesting than just staring at a blank screen. So yeah, if you like this, let me know, and I'll do the next one. Next chapter, that is. So, Grind, Chapter 1. Have you ever wondered what it's like to be surrounded by piercing bullets? To be in the heat of the moment and never feeling more alive, even though you're inches from death? To come face to face with notorious criminals without batting an eyelid? To single-handedly trick the entire United States government, all whilst being right under its nose? Well, don't worry, 'cause neither did Jordan. He was just an average 20-year-old working some boring end job, barely providing for his family. He wasn't happy. He'd been working in the local Chick-fil-A for 2.5 years now, ever since he dropped out of college. Jordan wasn't a bad student, he simply didn't enjoy his time there. He had some friends who promised him retirement by the time he's 30, but it was an illegal and unethical line of work they wanted him to join, so he rejected the offer. However, they'd only actually told Jordan what the work was after he'd already signed all of the documents discharging him from his military college. So basically, they shafted him. They ran a weed business. One grew the weed in the basement of his condo, one sourced customers through an identity protecting application, and a third handled deliveries. Jordan didn't want to join this life. He'd never done drugs before and didn't want to get on the wrong side of the law by supplying them. Although he believed weed wasn't even that bad, and arguably better than cigarettes, it was against his morals to join this operation. He'd make a living his own way, even if that involved working at a Chick-fil-A for another 5 years to build funds for a real estate firm he had visions for. It was just as well because his friends were busted and had been put away for a couple years. So for now, he was just stuck living his unhappy life from behind the counter at a rundown fast food joint at a highway rest stop in the middle of buttfuck nowhere. Now, you're probably wondering how this is all relevant to the first few sentences you read. Stay patient. There is suddenly an unforeseen event in Jordan's life which forces him to push his boundaries. For now though, let me tell you more about Jordan. So, Jordan had effectively been an orphan since birth, as both his parents were locked up in county prisons. Jordan's mother had been a prison guard at the penitentiary where his father was locked up for murder. The two had met when Jordan's mother was tasked to deliver his father's food, and the two instantly hit it off. His mother had always had tough luck when it came to relationships. She was always cheated on or simply just abandoned and stood up at restaurants when her dates found out what she did for a living. This confused Jordan, as personally he saw it as a respectable job. Well, that is until the prison guard sneaks out a convict doing 45 for life for a double homicide. Obviously, the pair had been found within a matter of hours, but this wasn't fast enough to avoid the conception of Jordan. They were found in the disabled toilet at the local IHOP. Classy. Both had been imprisoned in different states with a higher level of security than Jordan's dad had had before. Not surprising, that is it? Shortly after, Jordan's mum had caught the attention of the security guards when vomiting constantly, and they all discovered that Jordan's mother was pregnant. She was instantly moved to a safer block and was given special treatment during her pregnancy. However, after Jordan was born, this special treatment came to an abrupt end. She was transferred back to her previous cell and had been brutally beaten by her new cellmate. Over the following months, she'd trained and gained the trust of her blockmates, and they all ganged up and fatally beat her cellmate. 15 years were added to her sentence for this, as she was the ringleader, and the victim was the troubled daughter of the ex-mayor, who everyone loved. The reason everyone loved him was because he'd led the town out of poverty and had invested in infrastructure to help it financially strive. Jordan's father believed he was wrongly imprisoned, as the two people he'd murdered were wanted serial killers who targeted children. Jordan's father had saved the lives of 17 children who the pair of murderers had locked up in their basement. Jordan saw his father as a hero, unlike many others in the town. Unfortunately, DNA tests somehow showed all the 17 children to be related to the apparent serial killers, and the children claimed they were just playing a game where they were in prison with their parents, and there wasn't enough evidence to even convict the adults of being serial killers. Therefore, Jordan's father was trialed as if he'd just murdered 2 innocent civilians. And the problem is that a bunch of information was held from the public, so all that was released to the press was that Jordan's father had murdered 2 parents in their home and in the process had orphaned 17 children. Hence the hefty prison sentence he received. Now, you're probably wondering what happened to Jordan. Well, his grandmother had chosen to take custody of him as she didn't want to see her grandson forced to grow up in some adoption home. He may have been born into a pickle, but it wasn't a big deal. She believed he could still live a normal life and be successful. And in time, she'll be right. But for now, Jordan had to fulfill the huge order for the elephant of a man that was his daily customer. This dude ordered 3 chicken burger meals every single day just for lunch and always scoffed it down inside of 20 minutes. He always polished it off with a plus-size strawberry milkshake and a pint of orange soda. Jordan thought he must have weighed 300 pounds. But anyway, Jordan wrapped up the burgers and put them on the tray for the man, and he took it and went to sit down. The man usually sat at the centre table, as it was one of the only ones he could actually fit at, but today he walked over to the window seats, which had a noticeably lower level of structural integrity. Now, it's a good time to introduce you to Benny, who's the only other worker at the Chick-fil-A who's Jordan's age. Jordan is respectful of every customer regardless of their appearance. That's just how he is as a person, and it's how his grandmother raised him. He believes it's important to treat everyone with the same level of respect. He may think things about people, but he never speaks those thoughts. And it's not like you can think less of Jordan for having these thoughts, as everyone has them. You may not want to have these thoughts, or even admit that you do, but you do. It's human nature. Just like being in the queue at a store and thinking, hey, what if I just punch this cashier right now? Like, we all have these random thoughts and never share them, usually because we all have the decency to know when it's best to keep these thoughts to ourselves. Anyway, I'm getting a little away from the point here, but this leads on to Benny. Benny's a little different to that. He won't necessarily say things to people's faces, but will certainly make fun of people behind their back. As the elephant man was sitting down over by the window, Benny was coming back from his break and spoke to Jordan. How did serving Fatso go today? He's still eating more than a party full of weed-fueled students? Jordan wasn't very happy at this question and was about to confront Benny about it, but he didn't give Jordan the chance. Yo, check it, Fatso's about to break that chair. Jordan followed Benny's line of sight over towards the man by the window who was about to sit down. He sat down and nothing happened. Jordan turned to Benny. See? Nothing happened, so maybe you should think twice before making remarks like that. Benny met eyes with him and smirked. Just wait. Suddenly, Jordan heard a loud crash and jolted his head to see the metal structure of the seat crushed away, with the man on the floor covered in his food. Benny went hysterical and pointed at the man. Ha ha, Fatso flattened the stool! Some of the other customers looked over and smirked, with a few laughing out loud. No one stood up or walked over to help the man. Jordan saw this and quickly rushed over to help him to his feet. You okay, sir? He asked. The man, who's now stood up to a height of 5'8", looked up at 6'2" Jordan, who'd showed him kindness when everyone else had laughed at him. Yeah, thank you. I've been trying to watch my weight, but I always get so hungry. Jordan let out a weak smile. Don't worry, sir. You all come in different shapes and sizes. There's nothing wrong with your appearance. If you want, I can send you the link to a really good diet I use. It keeps me in great shape for my marathons. The man smiled at Jordan. Thank you. I really appreciate that, buddy. Jordan nodded. No problem, man. I'll get you some more food and I'll write it down for you. The man thanked him and Jordan headed back behind the counter to get the man some more food. Suddenly, Jordan's manager, Sarah, came out from her office in the back and confronted him. Jordan, why the hell were you shouting and making fun of that poor man? Jordan looked confused. That wasn't me, I helped him. Sarah glared at him. You were the only one there. Benny is outside on his break. After Benny had stopped making fun of the man, he'd sneaked out of the building, carefully avoiding view of security cameras. At that very moment, Benny walked in from the back. Hey Sarah, yo, what's going on? Sarah didn't take her eyes off Jordan. I'll tell you what's going on. Jordan's fired. Jordan looked at her in horror. He couldn't lose this job. It was his only way of providing for his grandmother. Without this job, they would both starve. Jordan contested Sarah's rash decision and protested that it was Benny who'd made fun of the customer, not him. Sarah smirked. Sorry dude, I'm not hearing it. Take off your apron now and get out before I have to call the cops. Jordan opened his mouth to argue but thought better of it. He'd always been taught to respect his superiors regardless of their decisions. He handed Sarah his apron and walked out the back door of the restaurant. After he'd left, Sarah turned to Benny and flirtatiously smirked. I knew it wasn't him, but I wanted an excuse to get rid of him. Did you hear what his dad did? That kid doesn't deserve an opportunity at life. I only hired him for the good publicity of giving an innocent child of 2 convicts a job. Benny smirked back. I didn't like him either. Kid's a fun sponge for real. Sarah took Benny's hand and led him into her office. The door locked behind them. Out in the parking lot, Jordan heard the sound of a gun firing. He ran over to a nearby police car and tried to alert them, but they didn't want to hear it. Get out of here, kid. It's our break, and we don't care. Jordan couldn't call the emergency services as he couldn't afford a phone. He then noticed that the noises had stopped, so he slowly walked up to the front door of the establishment to investigate. He could barely see through the smoke, but noticed the floors and walls had been stained in red paint. Wait. Jordan kept creeping forwards until he noticed something by his feet. It was a little girl in a ball on the floor. She was squeezing her teddy for comfort as she was in between the red-stained bodies of her parents. Jordan's eyes widened. It wasn't pain. Someone had opened fire in here. Jordan put his finger to his lips to tell the girl to be silent and carefully comforted her and picked her up off of the floor. He pointed back to the front entrance to tell the girl to walk out, and she walked out silently. Jordan continued forwards, carefully avoiding the numerous bodies that covered the once black and white checkered floors. He heard a noise from the back, and it sounded like it was coming from Sarah's office. He slowly made his way back behind the counter and towards the sound, cautious to not make a noise. The closer Jordan got to the office, the louder the noise became. Before, it was unidentifiable. Now, it sounded like muffled cries for help, as if someone's mouth had been duct taped shut. Jordan reached out for the handle and opened the door. The door opened to reveal Sarah and Benny, both tied to a chair, with tape over their mouths. They stared at him and made moaning noises as if they were trying to tell him something. Oh hey Jordan, right on time. Jordan turned around and the overweight customer from before appeared from the darkness in front of him. He was holding an automatic SMG, more specifically an MP7. Jordan raised his hands and backed up into the office. He took a closer look at the pair tied up and saw bruises all over their faces. He turned back to the man. What's going on? Why are you doing this? Please just let us go, man. The man chuckled. Don't worry yourself about a single thing, Geordie boy. You get to go home safe. You're the only person that's ever showed me the slightest bit of respect. But these two? He motioned to Sarah and Benny. They ain't going nowhere. Jordan worriedly looked back over at the pair, who shared the same look. Jordan tried to reason with the man, but he wasn't hearing it. The man took off his jacket to reveal a bomb strapped to his chest. I've reached the end. I can't tolerate being harassed anymore. These two are getting what they deserve. Don't feel bad for them. Jordan, you're the only person to ever respect me. That's why I'm letting you go. The man pressed a button on his vest. You have 20 seconds. Get out of here. Now, some people may call Jordan a wimp for running out of the building as fast as he could, but can you really blame him? You would all do the same. Besides, he didn't run out of that building for himself, he did it for his grandmother. Without him, she had no source of income, no means of getting food. She needed him as much as he needed her. He made it out in the nick of time, but the air wave from the blast sent him hurtling into the car park, straight into the side door of a blue Ford Bronco. His unconscious body was surrounded by medical staff and police. He'd be fine, but for now he needed to take it easy and rest. Jordan has had a pretty tough life, and unfortunately for him, it's about to get a whole lot more complicated. But for now, as I said, he needs rest. At this very same point in time, Jordan's friends were finishing up their prison sentences and were being released from jail. They'd soon hear about this event, and they would go straight to his grandmother's house to talk to him. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of chapter 1. So, if you enjoyed watching this, let me know, because this was more painful than it's going to look in the edited video. So, let me know if you enjoyed it. See you soon for chapter 2.